Hello.
Hello.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hey, Omkar. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, great. How are you?
I'm doing good,
No
man. How are you?
stress. Are you tensed, stressed by any chance? You look stressed or tensed.
Yeah, little bit.
Little bit. Yeah. Hi. Yeah. So great. Hey, Omkar. My name is Wilson. So I am the hiring manager for the role. And thanks for taking interest in this role. And thank you for waiting for so long to get this phone screen scheduled.
Yeah,
So let me give quick details about what this round is for, right? And then we can have a quick intro and then like get into the next steps.
sure.
Okay. Okay. So this is not an interview as such. This is a phone screen, right? This is kind of a pre-interview where we want to evaluate whether the candidate has the basic functionalities. I mean, has basic experiences that we're looking for the role that you're hiring. Because we have seen in the past that uh, while the resume matches, sometimes the candidate's experience is a bit different from what we have required, right? So
Okay.
we ask full screen, we'll evaluate the role fitment here. If everything's great, then we will move to the next steps of a full group interview.
Yeah,
That will
sure.
be a 5 round interview.
Okay.
Okay. And again, this role is for Amazon in Seattle. It's a work from office for 5 days. There's no work from home option. At times, 1 or 2 days fine, but it's regularly work from office role. So, are you aware of this and are you willing to relocate if not in Seattle?
Yeah, I'm agreed for relocation, and I'm willing to do on the on site for 5 days as well.
Okay. So let's get started, Omkar. So I want to know a quick intro about you. Okay, your current role, where you've been doing, your education background a bit, and mostly on the language engineering path. If you ever had any experience, I would like to know more about that.
Yeah.
And then I have some specific questions where I need your help. I need your answers as well, which will help me to better assess the role fitment. So can we
Okay.
go ahead and start with the intro and then we can figure out the next steps.
Yep, sure. So I'm Sai Omkar. My background is whole and soul in machine learning recently. Like from the past 5 years, I've been fortunate enough to work with both NLP as well as AIML solutions from the early of my career. Initially, I've started as an intern at Big Basket in India. Then I've been interning at Samsung Research and Development Lab in Bangalore, and I've been working on the Bixby voice assistant in Samsung, and also we have I've together with my team built data sets for multilingual data which has 20 plus Indian language dialects. And getting on after that, did my master's in UT Dallas. I've did it in computer science. Over there, I was fortunate enough to work as a research assistant for one of our professors, where we worked on multimodal language data models. And recently, from my master's graduation, I've been working in ASS as a contract employer. So over there, I worked on device voice assistant for two features called, one of it is StoryCube, which is basically an application where we uh, get our photos, interact with what the system holds in it, just like Google Photos. And I've been also working on device voice assistant in Asus for the PC. So this is a bit about myself.
Good. So you said you worked on Samsung's Bixby, right? So I'm gonna have a couple of questions related to that. Considering it's more of a voice assistant, what we are looking for also for Alexa is for the same lines, right? So and you also said you worked on like creating data sets for Bixby, multilingual and stuff, right?
Yes, right, right.
It's great. Okay. So assume if you have to create some kind of a feature in Bixby, so be open. We can like imagine, empathize, whatever you want. So it's a task to build a new feature in Bixby, and like you need to build a data set for it. right, with no standard orthography, right? How would you define the transcription guidelines across multiple annotators to ensure you get a consistent data? Right? What kind of transcription guidelines would you build if you have to build a no standard orthography for a voice data?
Okay, so like it is like if for the large scale data or any smaller data.
You can define. I'm fine with
Okay,
anything.
so it's much pretty close for with what I did, so I can relate much easier. So the situation was like we did not have any existing authority to or any toolkit which we could follow right away, right? So first thing I would do is to get real data of actual utterances of the word from multiple speakers which we have collected from our Samsung devices or from our customer support or from our educational research partnerships. So in our case, which I in India, which we used is what with Hindi and English both together. So the the tasks was to basically streamline data for either English or either Hindi, but we had faced problems so that both of the languages come together in a single language, and it couldn't take uh, much processing in it. So initially probably I will draft like 10 to 15 core rules, and immediately we will run a calibrating exercise, give some 50 to 100 utterances, and give it to some 3 to 4 annotators independently. We measure the annotators guidelines throughout the initial process, uh, from taking the like insights from the 2 to 3 annotators which we give. We measure it by Cohen's kappa values. Typically Cohen's kappa values are like if it is less than 0.5, we can eliminate the labels, and anything above 6 would be probably good enough, but anything about like 0.75 would be a better choice. In our cases we have used mostly anything above 0.6, so I would keep the threshold as 0.6 for any annotators which we give through. And also like sometimes even if the annotators give the higher limits of 0.75 together, it need not be the right solutions. It can either be like the annotators might be assuming that the answer was right, assuming that the labels were right, but sometimes it might also go wrong as well. And then if we iterate such type of sample audit after a few weeks, and pull some of the disagreements and root cause them, we would patch the guidelines if something goes wrong in mid process. So this is how I would extract my data from our research teams, give the data to our annotators, collect their insights. We'll see what values are occurring more, and also we'll also process human in the loop to check if the annotators are giving the right output or not. So like that.
We worked on again. I need a very honest answer. So have you worked on creating guidelines for data annotators earlier in your role?
Like I've created initial guidelines for the annotators in the Samsung. Like when we were working on English transcription work, there were no standard data for code switching Indian speeches. So I've built guidelines from scratch. The core team was like kind of romanticizing the consistently, like it was either trained on Hindi or either trained on English, right? So there were no particular guidelines for mixed speech. So when we say English, like aaj ka alarm kya tha, so that was type of sentences which we don't have a data on. So I've created the calibrated rounds, measured the kappa values, and every time the annotators disagreed, we had to pick the winner, and we had to add explicit examples to the guidelines so that the next person wouldn't face the same problem. And at Seeds Lab, when I was interning, there was an dialect coverage which has 20 plus regional languages, and the issue wasn't like romanization. It was the annotators that were having some coming from different regional backgrounds, and everyone sounded their own annotator guidelines as a correct answer. But when we get the final results from the annotators, we check the guidelines. Why were they I maybe giving the right answers, or maybe why were they giving such a low scores or high scores? So over there, I had to use like IA inter annotator guidelines to make sure that the data set what they are extracting or they are working on is right. And at recently in my master's project for the annotator guidelines for the multimodal data sets, it was a different problem, but it was same underlying process. Wrote the initial draft, run a IAA, found the gaps, iterated, got kappa values to a certain threshold. So I've done like across speech transcriptions, dialect annotations, and like multimodal labeling for the extracted audio files. And throughout all of this processes, we get the real data first, draft rules, calibrate, measure the disagreements, and then fix the rules.
The next detail that I want to know is, so in Bixby, right, again a voice-based AI, right?
Yeah.
How would you handle say homographs in TTS? And for example, let's say read and read both spells the same, but when the voice assistant is talking, it needs to like, pronounce it in a different way, right? So that the voice sounds natural. You can't say I read the book where it should have said I read the book, whatever, right? So how would you handle homographs in TTS?
That is a complete real problem in voice assistance in anything if we consider. So in a homograph, it is like a word is spelled same, but the pronunciation is kind of different based on the context. Like the classic ones, like read, read versus read, as you mentioned, or live versus live. Like I live in Dallas, or the concert was live. For transcription guidelines, the first thing I would do is not to try resolving the transcription itself. The transcription is a written form, right? So if a user says read, or user says write, you don't have to annotate the pronunciation in the transcription layer. That's basically a TTS or the downstream NLP problem, not a transcription problem. So when it comes to a guidelining the question based on the annotation layer, is that if we are labeling certain intent or tagging POS, now you need to capture what sense does it actually mean. So I'd handle it a few different ways. So first one would be the context window rule, where annotators look at the full utterance of the word, play something I can read versus I've read that. Context usually revolves around this kind of dialects. So you need to write the rule explicitly with both examples in the guidelines. Then second one would be genuinely ambiguous cases where context doesn't disambiguate. You need to mark the ambiguous or adjust the flags according to the errors, and you don't have to force a call. That's better having an annotator's coin flip or inflate our agreement score artificially. And next one would be I could handle it by high frequency enough, so that if English gets worse because you have Hindi words that romanize ideally to English words. So we have built dedicated decision tree models for the word in the FAQ section of the guidelines. And at Samsung, the romanization cases were actually trickier than classic English homographs, which we usually use in any kind of language assistant. So our Hindi word and an English word that looks identical on the screen, but it would be completely different cases. We handle that with like mandatory script of original tagging and any kind of word that which ambiguity was possible.
So, do you have any experience in prompt tuning? Anything that's what done prompt tuning earlier?
Prompt tuning, that's the recent adaptation which we have started with in probably after my internship in Samsung, primarily when I was working in my masters. At UTD, when we were building a multi-agent system, I built it completely on GPT-4 plus BERT, but and a big chunk of work that has actually having the prompt iteration. The orchestration agent had to route the queries properly into the right subagent, and early on it was falling on ambiguous inputs. The model weights weren't the problem. The prompt was kind of underspecified. So I treated the prompt iteration the same way I treat a code iteration. Maintained version prompt files and ran the same evaluation data sets for the each version, and we have tracked the pass rate of it. Every time a prompt change improved one of the failure model or broke another one, I could actually which I could see that with a human in the loop. So concretely, what I learned was the biggest gains came from two things which I can think of. One was adding explicit output format constraints. When I told the model to do exactly what the structure which we give, it hallucinates completely, creating its own style routing errors. And next one, I would use a few shots example in a system prompt where for different kind of edge cases which you were getting on from our team. If we give like 3 to 4 examples, it picks the one that keeps getting wrong. So the queries which we give through, the prompts which we give through are throughout like I did proper scrutiny over the prompts to make sure that mistakes don't appear again. Like I haven't done formal prompt tuning in the gradient based sense. We have mostly done soft prompts, prefix tunings, but prompt engineering at the iteration depth, yeah, it was like a real experience which we used prompt.
We noticed again when you said like prompts doesn't give you the results when it usually hallucinates. Have you noticed that like negative constraints in prompts usually challenges than positive constraints? Have you noticed that?
Yeah, like if we take the reference of what I actually did, actually this is the instincts is to write the rules as don't do X things, or don't do some certain things. But it feels clean, but in practice, negative constraints are way less reliable than the positive ones. You would probably need the model to don't hallucinate the product names, or when it still does, because you have essentially primed it to think that hallucination of the product names were like basically the hallucination part of it is basically happening because of the product names. What we have worked better was flipping it. Instead of don't make certain route paths, I would write it like route it to some certain sub agent lists in the set, let's say A, B, C, with some proper constraints, with positive framing and more consistent behavior. We are giving the model something to anchor to rather than something to avoid. So it basically follows the one which we gave it to anchor. The another thing I noticed was the negative constraints get worse by the chain length. In a single tune prompt, it is kind of manageable, but in multi-agent setup, the orchestrator output was feeding into sub-agent prompts, and the negative constraint violation earlier would compound eventually. But by the time we hit the third agent, the original guide rail was basically invisible. So it would derail from the prompts which we give when it enters the third agent. So I ended up with a rule for myself that if I'm writing a negative constraint, I immediately ask what's the positive version of it. Usually there is one which is more reliable. The cases where there's genuinely isn't a positive framing, those I handle with an output validation in the code, not with the prompt. So we have to trust the model to police itself or something that is more important. Honestly, I don't think it is well documented anywhere. It was almost a trial and error across a few of the 100 prompt iterations we give to.
I'm good, Pankaj. Okay, these are the information I wanted to know. Do you have any question from your side?
When we say about language engineer in Amazon, so there is no specific role as a language engineer in any of the companies, right? So it is basically NLP engineer, or maybe they use software development with prompts and all. So in Amazon, we would kind of use the prompting, or we have to make sure the guidelines for annotators were right, or we have to build the data from scratch. So is it like we instruct somebody, or it is that I have to take it all myself?
See, this is not a software developing role for sure. Okay, language engineer is very specific. As you said, it is a niche role.
Yes.
Maybe in smaller companies, they don't want to invest specifically on language engineer, so they usually combine it with other roles that where they have, right? Be it your ML engineer or software engineer or like NLP engineer. But what we believe, especially in like Alexa or in Amazon, is every role needs to be in depth, and only if it has that value, we will like open the title, right? So the expectation from this role is, see, Alexa is a voice-based assistant, and we are like expanding it to like various locations, locales, and countries, right? So a language engineer should help us understand where CX is working great, where CX is not working great. How do you find what is working well and what is not working well? Right? What is driving positive customer sentiment? What is driving high friction or like leading to a negative customer experience? With a twist of like adding a language barrier in it. For example, right, certain words that you use in English may not be, certain words you use in US may not be same as the way, convey the same meaning as you use in like say in UK or in Canada.
Yes,
right?
that's right.
But today the model is the same. Model is the same, so they're going to expand it to the same, right? So we want language engineers to set up this kind of an audit mechanisms, like or like it can be like annotation guidelines. We have a team for annotations, but what would the annotators identify? Right? Like guidelines for them. Okay, get those guidelines. Okay, get the data back, analyze it, and like surface it, saying, "Hey, this is what is going wrong." Right?
Okay.
So this role is more of like an intersection to product development to come back and say, hey, these signals are not working from a language standpoint or from a linguist standpoint, like this is what is happening, right? So for that, the language engineer will set up metrics, mechanisms, whatever they want, right? You're free to do that within whatever resources that we have,
Yeah.
right? To set up that, get the data, and then like surface it to leadership and the product team setting. This is what is going on. So it's more of like research, like identify like problem areas. Okay, set up your own guidelines, do that research, get the data, like present it to leadership, and then move on. That's how it's going to be.
So like this interview would be considered for it's for L5 or like L4, L5, right? Okay. Yep. So this is what I wanted to just make sure. Like it's pretty good. Yeah.
So again, see, I'll tell you very clearly what we are like looking for once again. So like, I think, like, hopefully it's in alignment with what you're looking for in your career as well, right? So we are part of Alexa shopping organization. Alexa has multiple domains. Shopping is one.
Yes.
Right? But shopping is the one domain that monetizes Alexa in one of the channel. Right? We
Right.
want Amazon customers to use Alexa as one of the endpoint for shopping, like website, app, and then Alexa for shopping, right? So CX is very, very like crucial there, right? If there's a slight friction or something happens, because we're changing customer behavior here, right? So it's not a one-day work. It's going to be a long-term habitual change that we need to drive.
Yeah.
Okay. customers. So we want the CX to be seamless. We want the CX to happen like very, very transitionless, right? So the language engineer will help us identify these, right? Then multiply this with like 20 plus locales that we have in pipeline for launch this year, right?
Oh, wow.
So for different locales, how the guidelines should be, what the annotators should figure out, right? So we have a bunch of annotators. We have a team of annotators across different locales. All of these are language, like native speakers, like language experts and everything for like European languages. India is only English for now, but all of this.
Like
So
when you say
language
about
engineers,
the languages which has different phonetics or different dialects, right? So like when I was working in Samsung, there was one project which I was building on. When I mentioned, like, we built 1 million data set of 20 plus Indian languages, right? So over in that project, there was also a requirement where we had to work on English for four different countries, like Indian English, Australian English, Thai English, and Vietnamese English, when I was working with. So over there we had similar problem, when we were, because I was an intern back then. I was mostly helping in the data correction and data collection of the different dialects. So basically, we got this requirement from I guess Thailand. I guess Samsung Thailand. So even they have faced similar problems, that the results they were not able to give results similarly when it is with Australian English or when it is with Indian English. So my main problem was with the Indian English, because Indian users were mixing English in a different tone, also their own regional languages in the data sets. So the cleaning part was very bit tricky in Indian languages. So I guess if we have cracked the Indian language data set, probably any other accent in the English would be easily cracked.
see what we are looking for is not data set creation or data collation, right? Where we'll be more worried on it, because see product launch happens irrespective of whatever it is.
Right.
Amazon today has the capacity to launch a product and like improve it
Sure,
iteratively.
sure.
We are not going to wait for a 100% great product, right? So the product launch will happen, but once it's happened, right, definitely 50% is going to work, 50% is going to fail somewhere, or it's going to keep creating friction, right? How and what mechanisms and how or what metrics? We have enough metrics today to figure out
Right.
a failure, success, friction, and everything, right? But none of it is from a language standpoint or from a linguistic standpoint, right, or from a customer sentiment standpoint. So we want the language engineer to set up those mechanisms, right? It can
Yeah.
be either way. It can be quantitative or it can be qualitative,
Yeah.
right? See, the difference may be, I don't know, I might be wrong, but from a Samsung and from what we expect from a Samsung role and here what we're looking is, here like nobody will tell you, okay, go get me this.
Yeah.
Product
This
statement is going to be one way to
That
talk,
is
right?
completely right. So like back then I was interning, so I worked on that one. So throughout, when I was working with different NLP models in my recent ASS project as well, so I've been working with giving the end product from myself as well. So when you said about the dialect change in English, so I just tracked back to what I did in Samsung. So I thought it was like kind of a similar thing which we are facing, like you just said, with different English, right? Yeah.
Just one of the examples again, right?
Yeah,
That's again one of
obviously.
the problems here. What we are looking for is to like this person to come in and tell us, hey, these things are going wrong. I've done these mechanisms, implemented these mechanisms or metrics in place which will help us get these signals. And like these are the signals that we need to address. Present it to leadership, present it to product leadership, site leadership, and they will like drive it down with the team. But we want these signals to come from language engineering, these kind of analysis. Right? On a very, very high level nutshell, this is what it is.
Yep, I understood.
More see the technical knowledge is needed to analyze the data, to use the tools and like everything, right?
Right.
And like prompt tuning, whatever it's required. But I think majority of it is not going to be any kind of a development work or anything. It's more of like analytics, right, coupled with some kind of a small level Python coding, this, that, and stuff, as and when wherever the role is required. Because when we move into large tools and stuff, I think eventually you need to use all this coding to analyze a large scale of data. right? It's only needed for that.
Like if we like if we go forward with the roles and all, look, initially we just we follow what is behind us, but later on when we keep developing and when we keep working on the things, sometimes we our instincts directly hit in the right point, like what was going on in what kind of places. So I think purely instincts would play a good role when we think that we should work on something new.
That's right. Okay, so let me do a thing. So I will talk to the recruiter. The recruiter will get back to you on the next steps, right? But what I would recommend is a phone screen is different, interview is different.
Okay.
An interview again, try to follow the STAR or the SBI model, however you want to, but be it more like data driven, number driven, with all your answers like grounded towards more on language engineering. How did you analyze the data, right? What tools, mechanisms did you use to analyze the data and get the results out, right?
Yeah.
That would help you to clear that.
Yeah, that is a good one, because initially I was fumbling a little bit when I when I just talked to you after the questions. Then I was kind of bit relaxed, like I was maybe thinking it more broad. So that is I take it.
Any questions is going to be, see, it can be, see, the questions will be generic. Okay.
Yes.
So what did you do in this kind of a scenario? But what we're evaluating is for a language engineer role, right? So tie it back to what the job description is and what we spoke about now. Compare it to what you worked earlier, like situation, behavior, and impact. You don't use STAR or SBI, whatever you want to call it SBI, situation, behavior, and impact. What was the situation? In the behavior is where you will say what analysis you did, how you use data, what kind of skills you used, and all that, right? Then what was the impact? So always follow this thing and have the number impact wherever it's applicable.
Okay, sure. I'll take it. I'll take it and keep it in mind.
Thanks, Uncle. It was good talking to you.
Yeah. Likewise, Wilson.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, have a good one.
ఎందుకు నా క్వశ్చన్లు అని చెప్పి వాడితో డిస్కషన్ పెడతా వాడు క్వశ్చన్
ఆ?
అడిగితే వాడు
అంటే-
వెళ్ళిపోదాం అనుకున్నాడు అనుకో
లేదు, వెళ్ళిపో